Hello, everybody. I am C.S. Nair. I welcome you all to my YouTube channel, English for Class 12 CBSE. Today, I want to take the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. It is written by Adrienne Rich. She was born in 1929 and passed away in 2012. An American poetess, and she was a well-known poet, activist, and a feminist, essayist, everything. She led a very busy life and very fruitful life. Now, the poem, you must say that it is a female poem. A lot of feministic ideas are expressed in here. Anyway, it is a very wonderful poem, beautiful poem, a sort of thought-provoking poem, I should say. It was written in mid 20s when she was still a student. The poem is a very short one. It has only three stanzas, and every stanza has four lines. And it is a heroic couplet. That is a form we call it. Perfect rhyming. The first two lines are rhymed, end rhyming actually, and all the following lines, that is 3 4 rhymed, 5 6 lined, I like that it goes, you see. So it was written in mid 20s, as I told you, and the rhyming scheme, if you want to see it, is A A B B C C D D. It goes all along all the 12 lines. Then it is written in iambic pentameter. Probably you might have heard about iambic pentameter because most of the poems are written in iambic pentameter because it is very comfortable. Even Shakespeare uses iambic pentameter. And the diction is the syntax. It is mixed, they are mixed so well. You will see that in the phrase mastered by, especially so nicely blended together. It produces great effect on the reader. Here we have a narrator, but nothing is told about the narrator in the poem. A narrator is behind the curtains, but we can somewhere or other imagine who that could be after knowing who our real poet is. Our real poet is Adrian, and if you know her a little bit, you can somewhere or other guess almost correctly that the narrator could be a female and must be young because of the way the story is told, and also she could be a relative of our Aunt Jennifer. This we can conclude logically after taking some facts into consideration. Now, another thing important thing about is that the narrator was present when the aunt was working on her panel. That also is important because you can see the mode, the tone, and the expressions in the poem. Now, to talk about Aunt Jennifer, we can here again we can conclude that she was by all means a married woman, and she lived with her husband. Now, we can also find some hints in the poem to believe that she lived in a patriarchal society where the males were powerful and the females were actually second grade. And the poem firmly suggests that Aunt Jennifer's prospects in life have been limited by her gender and also by her marriage. These two factors produce terror in her because when she realizes she has no future, that means she has no free mind of herself, of her own, she has to be under somebody all the time. It is actually a slave like life, you know. But the poem does not condemn all males, be careful. But the uncle is certainly one to be condemned because it is because of him our lady was suffering. Now, the title of the poem is very, very, very deep. Now look here. The tigers are Aunt Jennifer's creations, and she created them in the panel with wool and ivory needle. Now, why she chose tigers as a subjects for her embroidery work is what the poem is all about. Tigers by nature are wild, free, and ferocious, isn't it? And they have that dominating nature, and they don't allow any other tiger to frighten them or to come across them. They will simply attack them. They are very powerful. At the same time, though they are very ferocious, they are charming also and graceful. And this title remains alive all through the 12 lines of the poem. Very good title. Now, if you want to segregate the paragraphs, stanzas, the first stanza is dealing with the dominance of patriarchal society, male dominance, because males, they are the real power in a society. The females had very little to say. So, stanza 2, it is dealing with Aunt Jennifer's unhappy marriage. And the first time, fear enters the poem. Aunt is really terrified. The third stanza deals with the immortality of art. The art which Aunt Jennifer created, it is going to be immortal. A day will come when Aunt Jennifer will be dead and gone, but her work of art will remain in the drawing room and it will be immortal. Even though third stanza portrays a kind of morbid picture, even then a little bit of old wisdom is expressed here that art is immortal. Now here we have to be very careful with the poetic devices used here, because otherwise the poem would not have been such a success. Now the poet devices are symbols. Now let us see symbols, how they are used. Swing, tigers, wedding ring, etc. come under symbols. Metonymy, there is a very good poetic device. Metonymy, it is a figure of speech also. It represents marriage with the wedding band. The word marriage is never mentioned in the poem, but you will see wedding band is mentioned two times, wedding ring and wedding band. And one time it is used in metonymy. And synecdoche is used here, hand. Hand is only a part of your body, but once it is used in this poem, in this line, the hand, it represents the whole person, that is Aunt Jennifer herself. And there is verbal irony. What happens is here in verbal irony is what is said and what is meant are totally different. Now, this is very, very effective here. Why? Because the theme we are dealing with is dominance or dominancy of patriarchal society, in which the females had no freedom whatsoever, freedom of expression or freedom of movement, nothing. So here the verbal irony only will work out. At the same time, we have a subject here that is Aunt Jennifer, who is really terrified and she is very timid. So what happens? Without using verbal irony, there is no other way you can handle the situation. Because whatever is told in the poem is not exactly right. Underneath that, the truth remains. The truth remains underneath. The truth is that Aunt Jennifer is under the stress or under the dominance of her husband, and he was not very kind to her. In a way of speaking, she was very uh, what we call strict husband, and the lady did not have any freedom. So verbal irony only will work out here. Contrast is used. Tigers, they are brave, whereas Aunt Jennifer is timid and frightened person. Personification here, tigers prancing and topaz, denizens, etc. Imagery also is there. Tigers and forest. Couplet is a form of writing here. And consonants, that is repeated S sound, you can hear pace, sleek, certainty, etc. Now, before I go and read the poem and I explain to you stanza by stanza, I want you to understand one thing. The olden times, even today, art is supposed to be immortal. Art is immortal because art never dies. The artist may die, but the art will not die. His work will remain. So, by looking at that work, even after centuries, we would remember the artist. Now, today, if you go and watch Michelangelo or Van Gogh or any of those old masters, you will see their works in museums. But the artist himself had died and gone long, long ago. So, art is immortal. And also, here, according to Aunt Jennifer, art gives an expression of freedom. Yes, when she is engaged in creating her tigers on the panel, she feels free because her expression is her own and she feels enjoys the freedom of that moment. This freedom is available to all, whether it is a male or a female. That is the message that we can see from the act of our Aunt Jennifer. The poet herself, if you study her biography, you will know that she disapproved all the time the gender oppression and domination of males, and also the lack of freedom women suffered during those days, segregation, everything. As she was an American and she had the freedom to express. In the mid 20s, she was a big, loud voice in this moment, feminism. Now, uh, in the first stanza, I forgot to tell you something. She finds relief to see her tigers enjoying the freedom and fearlessness. Actually, she herself should have inherited at birth, but she did not, unfortunately. But in her creation, she showed that this is what I really longed for. This is what almost everybody expects in this life, born free. But one thing or other, the gender starts playing tricks on everybody's life, and especially the females, they suffered a lot during that time. Nowadays, also, there is a lot of discriminations and partialities and favoritism going on, but not to that extent which was seen 50 years ago, 60 years ago, so to say. So, this is the introduction to the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrian. This is the part one of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. The second part will come in my next video, most probably tomorrow.